Your business, your source.
The time by Kyrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The business news headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible.
Jamaica's recovery pact, CARICOM's energy push, and Lilly hits $1 trillion. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Friday, November 21, 2025. I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, MIIC and IDB forge high-level pact to accelerate Jamaica's post-Melissa business recovery. On the regional front, CARICOM pushes waste-to-energy blueprint with big payoff for rural economies. And over on the global stage, Eli Lilly becomes the first pharmaceutical company to hit a US $1 trillion valuation. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the
We get the big contract. 50,000 units a month for 3 years. Great. Won't need help.
If you are a business owner that requires capital for the expansion of your business, talk to a registered broker today to find out more about listing your company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, an efficient alternative to other financing options.
Thank God for the Jamaica Stock Exchange Junior Market.
The Jamaica Stock Exchange, providing a fair, efficient, and transparent stock market.
The local news is brought to you by Darriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Back to CBX Business News. We begin with a major boost to Jamaica's business recovery post-Melissa. Jamaica's business engine is shifting into higher gear this evening as the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce strengthens its partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB. The two sides have locked in a 2-day technical mission to fast-track post-Melissa recovery and boost long-term resilience across the country's industrial and investment landscape. Led by Industry and Investment Minister Senator Aubin Hill, the high-level meetings brought IDB Chief Operating Officer Carissa Ribeiro and senior technical officials to Kingston for intensive strategy sessions with JAMPRO, the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority JSEZA, and MIIC's leadership. At the center of the mission is restoring productivity, supercharging MSMEs, and repositioning Jamaica for stronger trade and investment flows after Melissa's multi-billion-dollar blow to local businesses. Minister Hill says working closely with the IDB will help advance Jamaica's MSME and services policy, strengthen trade, attract investment, and pair skills training with rail business recovery. Jamaica's economic recovery is facing a fresh blow as health officials warn that the workers most essential to rebuilding after Hurricane Melissa are now the most exposed to the island's newly declared leptospirosis outbreak. Speaking during a press conference earlier today, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says frontline workers in flood-hit zones are at the center of the risk map.
Jamaica is now experiencing an outbreak of leptospirosis with an increase in the number of confirmed and suspected or probable cases reported across multiple parishes over the last week. The outbreak follows the passage of Hurricane Melissa, which has created conditions that have increased the risk of exposure to contaminated water and soil. The bacteria that causes this disease thrives in water contaminated by urine of infected animals, especially rats, but also cats, dogs, and livestock. Leptospirosis can affect anyone who comes into contact with contaminated water, soil, or mud. That includes farmers, persons engaged in cleanup activities, emergency responders, and others navigating flood areas.
The health minister also confirmed 9 cases of leptospirosis, with another 28 suspected. 6 deaths have been reported among the suspected cases.
A meeting last evening with my team confirmed that there are 9 cases that are confirmed, 28 suspected or probable cases. And these numbers are from October 30th, 2025 to November 20, 2025. The numbers reflect significantly more cases than the 2 to 21 cases observed in the preceding 34 months. There have been 6 deaths from among the suspected cases. There are no deaths from among the confirmed or probable cases at this time. 8 parishes have confirmed and or suspected cases. St. Anne, St. Mary, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, St. Catherine, and Trelawney, with additional reported cases under investigation.
That was Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton. Jamaica's private sector has moved into full command mode as it joins forces with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to jumpstart the country's economic recovery from Hurricane Melissa. The JMEA, PSOJ, and JCC recently forged an alliance to create a private sector emergency operations center to steer business continuity, livelihood restoration, and on-the-ground recovery logistics. Speaking during a government press conference on Thursday, JMEA President Catherine Silvera says the center is mapping the on-the-ground disruptions that government systems often can't capture quickly.
The private sector EOC's mandate is to rapidly assess, prioritize, and drive private sector-led initiatives focused on livelihoods, essential services, business continuity, and economic resilience. We provide data daily to the National EOC through our designated liaison officer, Senator Keith Duncan, ensuring that all private sector actions align with national strategy, respect legal mandates, and complement the government's overall relief effort. The private sector EOC consolidates ground-level data from across affected communities, including business impacts, road access, supply shortages, labor challenges, and critical needs. This enables precise targeting of interventions where the need is greatest.
She says that the center is now flooded with daily intelligence from major industries, giving corporate Jamaica its most accurate read yet on where commerce is stalled.
We receive daily reports from the tourism and hospitality sector, fast-moving consumer good companies, agriculture, business process outsourcing companies, building supplies and construction firms, and the banking and remittance sector. These insights ensure that our response are data-driven and responsive, particularly in parishes and communities most affected.
That was JMEA President Catherine Silvera. And in financial news, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica Limited has delivered one of its most dramatic financial turnarounds in years, posting a Jamaican $15.5 million profit for the 9 months to September 2025. This represents a sharp reversal from the Jamaican $5.4 million loss recorded in the same period last year. The company's unaudited financial statement for the third quarter ending September 30, 2025 showed revenues climbing to Jamaican $1.27 billion, while gross profit strengthened to $519.8 million. But the standout number is cash. The company's cash and cash equivalents exploded to Jamaican $86.9 million, up from just $1.6 million at the same point in 2024, a 4,900% surge. This was driven by tighter receivables management, slower inventory buildup, and reduced overdraft exposure. Net operating cash inflows also hit Jamaican $44.7 million, also a major swing from the Jamaican $30.4 million outflow last year. Meanwhile, Consolidated Bakery's balance sheet is even more striking, with total assets having doubled year over year to Jamaican $2.07 billion. Still, challenges remain. The company recorded a Jamaican $10 million quarterly loss for the July to September period as distribution and administrative expenses rose and financing costs jumped to Jamaican $19 million year to date. We go now to updates from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Friday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $160.65, the Canadian for $114.95, the pound sterling for $210.75, while the going rate for the euro is $185.66. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Friday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 107 stocks, of which 39 advanced, 50 declined, and 18 traded firm. Leading today's winners are Epley Limited, 7.75% preference shares, Iron Rock Insurance Company, Margaritaville Turks, USD, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers, while leading the losers are Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, MPC Caribbean Clean Energy, JMMB Group 10% variable rate, JMD Preference Shares, and Mayberry Jamaican Equities. The main index declined by 1,401.44 points, or 0.45%, to close at 312,486.96 points. The junior market index declined by 10.23 points, or 0.31%, to close at 3,337.50 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're looking at the term blue collar. Blue collar is a somewhat old-fashioned label used for jobs performed outside a traditional office setting, usually involving manual labor or skilled trades. The term comes from the darker work clothes typically worn by blue-collar employees, in contrast to the white shirts and ties traditionally associated with white-collar workers. Today, of course, that distinction is becoming much less clear. Examples of industries in this category include construction, manufacturing, maintenance, and mining. Today, blue collar is still used to describe the segment of the workforce engaged in manual labor, whether in factories, plants, mines, or agricultural settings.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Diamond Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and pulse investments.
If it were not for the Jamaica Stock Exchange listing, Phosphate Company Limited would not be where it's at today. I called them, they listened to my concerns and my fears, and they gave me the answers. All the fears I had about banks, about losing control, you are having them. And I tell you, they were dissipated when I spoke to the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This is one of the best decisions I have ever made in business. If you want to change the trajectory of your business and to grow, make that call today to the Jamaica Stock Exchange. You will be glad you did.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. A powerful new business case is emerging across the Caribbean, one that argues farm and forestry waste could become a multi-million-dollar energy industry, slash fuel imports, and ignite rural economic growth. New CARICOM research is challenging long-held assumptions about renewables, showing that when solar is paired with biomass, the system delivers cheaper power, steadier supply, and greater economic value than solar or wind alone.
If we look at the levelized costs of electricity from the biomass and the PV system, we can see biomass is actually the better system in terms of cost of operations. And we know commercial costs right now we're paying like 25 cents, $50 thereabout a kilowatt hour. Just on average, probably 48 thereabout. But we can see that biomass is the better system in terms of cost, right? It actually does better than PV.
That was head of Department for Electrical Engineering at the University of Guyana, Dr. Mahendra Kanai, speaking during a high-level CARICOM Energy Month webinar earlier this week. Antigua and Barbuda is seeking to chart the next phase of an economic transformation that has already lifted the twinned island state into one of the Caribbean's most prosperous economies. Delivering the throne speech during the opening session of Parliament on Thursday, Governor General Sir Rodney Williams says the country's GDP has skyrocketed to more than $2 billion in the last 25 years.
Our island state, despite setbacks, has experienced a quarter of a century of growth, solid, stable, and soaring. 25 years ago, in the year 2000, our gross domestic product, GDP, the sum of all economic activity in the 12-month period, measured $802 million. The current GDP of Antigua and Barbuda in 2025 exceeds $2 billion, a growth rate in excess of 300,000%, measuring the strides during the first 25 years of this century.
He says average annual income now exceeds EC $60,000 per capita.
The people who live and work in Antigua and Barbuda are among the most prosperous and productive in the entire Caribbean, earning an average of more than EC $60,000 per capita, and positioned to increase that average even further in the immediate future.
That was Antigua and Barbuda's Governor General, Sir Rodney Williams. In other news, Belize's government has tabled a $78 million supplementary budget for the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, with a striking 75% of the allocation funneled into capital investments aimed at strengthening infrastructure, security, and public services. Tabling the request in Parliament on Thursday, Prime Minister and Finance Minister John Briceño notes that the Ministry of Finance will account for over $10 million of the additional funds.
For the fiscal year 2024-2025, the total supplementary submission is $78 million, $752,546, of which approximately $20.5 million is for recurrent, $49.25 million Capital 2, and $9 million Capital 3. For this supplementary, therefore, 75% or 3/4 of the total allocation is for Capital 2 and Capital 3 investments. Now let me outline some of the larger allocations within this supplementary. The Ministry of Finance accounts for some $10.5 million, which includes approximately $4.5 million for various mandatory international contributions. The UDP was not for years when they were in government, never did pay the subscription that they had to pay for these different international bodies.
That was Belize's Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, John Briceño. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 18 securities, of which 6 advanced, 3 declined, and 9 traded firm. Today's winners are Angostura Holdings, A.S. Briding & Sons Holdings, National Enterprises, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, while the 3 losers today are Republic Financial Holdings, Massey Holdings, and NCB Financial Group. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 14.59 points to close at 1,367.08. The Composite Index advanced by 7.34 points to close at 945.52. The Cross-Listed Index declined by 0.08 points to close at 69.17. The SME Index remained at 96.30. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
in international news. Eli Lilly has become the first pharmaceutical company ever to cross the U.S. $1 trillion market value threshold, cementing its lead in the global obesity drug gold rush. A 35% stock surge this year has propelled the U.S. drug maker past rivals and even dethroned Merck's Keytruda as the world's top-selling medication. In its latest quarter, Lilly booked more than US $10 billion from its metabolic portfolio alone, over half its total revenue. And analysts say Its valuation at 50 times forward earnings reflects deep investor conviction in long-term demand. Lilly now turns its focus to its upcoming oral obesity pill expected to win approval next year, solidifying its momentum in what Wall Street sees as a US $150 billion market by 2030. From Big Pharma's historic milestone, we now turn to a major policy shift shaking global technology flows. The Trump administration is reviewing whether to allow NVIDIA's advanced H200 AI chips to be sold in China, a dramatic potential reversal of earlier export bans. Commerce Department officials are evaluating whether to soften restrictions following last month's Trump-Xi truce in Busan. The move could reset the US-China tech battlefield, but Washington's China hawks warn that easing controls on cutting-edge chips could boost Beijing's military capabilities. The White House has not commented, and the review is ongoing. And while tech diplomacy shifts, trade tensions are hitting one of the world's biggest coffee exporters. Brazil is warning that the U.S. market for instant coffee, which accounts for 20% of its exports, is at risk after President Donald Trump kept 50% tariffs on the product. The White House removed steep duties on green coffee, beef, cocoa, and fruit, but instant coffee was not included. An industry group says this leaves Brazilian producers exposed to permanent displacement by rival suppliers, adding that once market share and consumer loyalty disappear, recovery becomes extremely difficult. Meanwhile, specialty coffee exporters welcomed the tariff rollback after shipments plunged 55% during the August to October tariff window. And finally, in global gaming industry, a major investment tie-up has closed between two longtime partners. Ubisoft has finalized Tencent's 1.16 billion euro investment in Vantage Studios, a new unit built around Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. The deal gives Tencent a 26.32% economic interest and values the studio at 3.8 billion euros pre-money while leaving Ubisoft in full control. Strict lock-in clauses prevent Tencent from selling its stakes for 5 years and require Ubisoft to maintain control for at least 2 years. The agreement also marks a deepening of the company's strategic relationship as gaming giants consolidate their biggest franchises into high-value content hubs. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of
I grew up and see my granny save her money under her mattress.
Exactly. Okay. Your grandmother house never burned down? No, how you reached that, so?
That was a one-off thing.
That could have happened to anybody. That's why you must put your money in a financial institution and protect it.
What if the bank crash?
Well, that's where JDIC comes in.
What you mean?
JDIC is a financial safety net which provides coverage for your money in case your financial institution fails.
Explain that to me.
All right. Because of the JDIC deposit insurance scheme, once you put your money into a financial institution like a bank or building society, you can get coverage of up to a maximum of $1.2 million per deposit of your financial institution if it should fail. And for even more information, you can visit their new website at www.jdic.org, and you can follow the social media platforms for the latest information.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, MIIC and IDB forge high-level pact to accelerate Jamaica's post-Melissa business recovery. Regionally, CARICOM pushes waste-to-energy blueprint with big payoff for rural economies. And internationally, Eli Lilly becomes the first pharmaceutical firm to hit $1 trillion. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.